The Black Death, a devastating pandemic that swept across Europe in the mid-14th century, stands as one of the most transformative events in human history. Striking between 1347 and 1351, the plague was caused by the bacterium Yersinia pestis, transmitted to humans via fleas carried by infected rodents. In this video, we look at how the Black Death plague changed Europe forever. Originating in Central Asia, it travelled westward along trade routes, reaching Europe with unprecedented speed. The scale of the disaster was immense. Estimates suggest that the Black Death claimed the lives of 25 to 50 million people in Europe, amounting to roughly 1/3 of the continent's population. At a time when scientific understanding of diseases was limited, the arrival of the Black Death created widespread panic and confusion. Towns and villages emptied, economies faltered, and traditional institutions struggled to cope with the magnitude of the crisis. The physical and psychological toll was enormous, with its effects rippling across society in ways that would reshape Europe for generations. This article delves into how the Black Death spread, its profound impact on Europe's social and economic structures, and the cultural responses that emerged in the wake of the pandemic, while also examining its long-term consequences for the continent's development. The spread of the Black Death. The rapid and devastating spread of the Black Death was facilitated by a combination of human activity, environmental conditions, and interconnected trade networks. The pandemic is believed to have originated in Central Asia, where the bacterium Yersinia pestis had been present among rodent populations. From there, it made its way westward, carried along the Silk Road and other trade routes before arriving in Europe in 1347. The plague is thought to have first entered Europe through the Crimean port city of Kaffa after a siege by the Mongol army. From Kaffa, the disease travelled by ship across the Mediterranean, reaching key ports such as Constantinople, Messina, and Marseille. Once the plague entered Europe, it moved quickly through trade hubs, spreading inland via rivers, roads, and other routes of commerce. Merchants, sailors, and travellers unwittingly carried the disease to new regions, while urban centres with dense populations and unsanitary conditions provided the perfect environment for the outbreak to take hold. Environmental factors also contributed to the pandemic's rapid spread. Europe had recently entered a period of cooling known as the Little Ice Age, which caused agricultural decline and widespread famine in the early 14th century. This weakened the immune systems of many Europeans, making them more susceptible to the disease. Additionally, the prevalence of rats in European cities played a central role in the transmission of the plague. Infected fleas that lived on these rats would bite humans, passing on the bacterium and triggering outbreaks. As the plague swept through Europe, its effects were unpredictable and chaotic. Some regions experienced near total depopulation, while others were relatively spared. Coastal areas and major cities often suffered first, with inland rural areas hit later. The Black Death's ability to move rapidly, combined with the lack of medical knowledge at the time, ensured that no region was fully prepared to contain it. In just a few short years, the plague had reached nearly every corner of the continent, leaving devastation in its wake. Social and economic impact of the Black Death. The Black Death wrought profound social and economic upheaval across Europe, fundamentally altering the way people lived and worked. One of the most immediate and visible effects of the pandemic was the staggering loss of life. Entire villages were wiped out, and cities saw their populations reduced by half or more. This widespread depopulation caused significant disruptions in all aspects of daily life, particularly in the labour market. Before the plague, Europe operated largely under the feudal system, in which peasants and serfs worked the land for their lords in exchange for protection and a share of the harvest. However, the massive death toll created severe labour shortages, leaving fields untended and economies paralysed. Survivors, especially peasants, found themselves in a stronger bargaining position as landowners became desperate to find workers. This shift led to higher wages and better living conditions for many labourers, contributing to the gradual erosion of the feudal system. In some cases, landowners responded to the labour crisis by attempting to impose stricter controls on their workers, leading to tensions and outright revolts. For example, England saw the Peasants' Revolt of 1381, fueled in part by post-plague economic conditions and resentment over attempts to fix wages and restrict mobility. Across Europe, the old social hierarchies were increasingly challenged as the balance of power between landowners and labourers shifted. The economic disruptions caused by the Black Death also had far-reaching consequences for trade and commerce. With so many people dead, demand for goods and services declined sharply, leading to deflation in some areas. Markets struggled to recover, and many merchants and businesses went bankrupt. At the same time, the plague's aftermath opened up new opportunities for innovation and economic growth. Survivors inherited land and wealth from deceased family members, creating a new class of upwardly mobile individuals. In cities, the reduction in population allowed for better distribution of resources, which eventually laid the groundwork for economic revitalization. Cultural and religious responses to the Black Death. The Black Death not only transformed Europe's economy and social structures, but also left a deep cultural and spiritual mark on the continent. Faced with the incomprehensible scale of suffering and death, Europeans turned to religion, art, and literature in an attempt to make sense of the catastrophe. Religious responses to the plague were varied and often contradictory. Many people viewed the Black Death as divine punishment for humanity's sins, leading to an upsurge in piety and religious observance. Pilgrimages and public processions became common as individuals sought to atone for their sins and plead for divine intervention. At the same time, some groups, such as the Flagellants, emerged as radical religious movements. The Flagellants travelled from town to town, whipping themselves in public displays of penance, believing that their suffering would help lift the plague. The Church, which had been a cornerstone of medieval European society, faced both challenges and opportunities during the Black Death. On the one hand, the high mortality rate among clergy members left many parishes without leadership, weakening the Church's authority. On the other hand, the crisis also reinforced the Church's role as a source of comfort and guidance in times of turmoil. However, the inability of religious leaders to stop the plague led to disillusionment among some believers, planting seeds of doubt that would later contribute to the Reformation. The cultural effects of the Black Death extended beyond religion. The horrors of the pandemic found expression in the art and literature of the time, which became increasingly preoccupied with themes of death and mortality. The Danse Macabre, or Dance of Death, became a popular motif in paintings and manuscripts, symbolizing the universality of death and the futility of earthly wealth and power. Similarly, writers such as Giovanni Boccaccio captured the human experience of the plague in works like the Decameron, which tells the story of a group of people seeking refuge from the outbreak while sharing tales of love and tragedy. Long-term effects of the Black Death. The Black Death's impact did not end with the initial wave of devastation. Its long-term consequences shaped European history in ways that continue to be felt today. One of the most significant outcomes was the transformation of the continent's social and economic systems. The decline of feudalism and the rise of wage labour created the conditions for the development of more modern economic structures. In the centuries following the Black Death, Europe experienced the beginnings of capitalism and the expansion of trade networks, which would eventually fuel the growth of empires and global exploration. The pandemic also had a lasting impact on European demographics and urban development. With fewer people to support, many rural areas were abandoned, and survivors often moved to cities in search of better opportunities. This trend contributed to the growth of urban centres and the eventual emergence of the Renaissance, as cities became hubs of cultural and intellectual activity. On a broader level, the Black Death forced societies to re-evaluate their approaches to public health and medicine. While medieval medical knowledge remained limited, the scale of the pandemic underscored the importance of sanitation and disease prevention. Over time, these lessons paved the way for advancements in medical science and public health infrastructure. Culturally, the Black Death left a deep imprint on European consciousness. The experience of widespread mortality led to a heightened awareness of the fragility of life and the inevitability of death. This shift in perspective influenced everything from religious practices to philosophical debates, shaping the way Europeans thought about their place in the world. The Black Death was a tragedy of immense proportions, but it was also a turning point in European history. The pandemic laid bare the vulnerabilities of medieval society while creating opportunities for growth and change. It serves as a powerful reminder of the interconnectedness of human communities and the ways in which crises can drive innovation and transformation. As we reflect on the Black Death, it's worth considering its relevance to our own era. The challenges posed by modern pandemics, from COVID-19 to emerging diseases, echo the fears and uncertainties of the 14th century. By studying the responses to the Black Death, we can gain valuable insights into how societies adapt to crisis and rebuild in the face of loss. The lessons of the past remind us of our shared responsibility to prepare for the future and work toward a more resilient world. What lessons do you think we can learn from the Black Death plague? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe if you enjoyed this video.